Welcome back 11th class. This is your another section of biology. I am taking revision part of chapter 17, mechanism of breathing. The movement of air into and out of the lungs is carried out by creating a pressure gradient between the lungs and the atmosphere. The diaphragm and the intercostal muscles help in the generation of such a pressure gradient. Breathing involves two steps. One is inspiration and the other is expiration. In inspiration occurs when the intrapulmonary pressure is less than atmospheric pressure. That is, the intrapulmonary pressure is negative compared to the atmospheric pressure. While in expiration, it occurs when the intrapulmonary pressure is higher than that of the atmosphere. Next slide shows respiratory volumes. As you can see in the table, the volume of air involved in the breathing movements can be measured by using a spirometer. There is some points in respiratory volumes. One is tidal volume. Tidal volume, the volume of air inspired and expired during normal effortless breathing is called the tidal volume. It is approximately 500 milliliter. In inspiratory reserve volume IRV, the extra volume of air that can be inspired beyond the normal tidal volume is called inspiratory reserve volume. It is about 2500 to 3000 milliliter. While in expiratory reserve volume ERV, the extra volume of air that can be breathed out beyond the normal tidal volume is called expiratory reserve volume. Its volume is about 1000 milliliter to 1100 milliliter. In residual volume, the volume of air that remains in the lungs even after forceful expiration is called residual volume. Its value average between 1100 milliliter and 1200 milliliter. Next slide shows pulmonary capacities. We can say respiratory capacities also. When two or more respiratory volumes are considered together, pulmonary capacities are obtained. Inspiratory capacities, IC, the volume of air that can be breathed in by distending the lungs to a maximum beginning at the normal expiratory level is called the inspiratory capacities. It is the sum total of tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume, that is IC is equal to TB plus IRV. Functional residual capacity. When a person inhales and exhales in a normal way, the volume of air that remains in the lungs is known as functional residual capacities. Students, it's include the residual volume and expiratory reserve volume. That is FRC is equal to RV plus ERY. Expiratory capacity EC, the volume of air that can be breathed out forcefully after a normal inspiration is called expiratory capacity. It includes tidal volumes and expiratory reserve volume, that is EC is equal to TB plus ERV. Next is vital capacity. Vital capacity, when a person inhales with maximum efforts and exhales also with maximum efforts, the volume of air breathed out is called vital capacity. It is the sum total of tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume and expiratory reserve volume. That is VC is equal to TV plus IRV plus ERV. Next is total lung capacity. Total lung capacity refers to the volume of air accommodated in the lungs at the end of a forceful inspiration. It is the sum total of tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume and residual volume. So the TLC is equal to TV plus IRV plus ERV plus RV, or we can say TLC is equal to VC plus RV. Next slide shows exchange of gases. You can see here there is alveolus and the capillaries. In the alveoli are the primary site of exchange of respiratory gases. Oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged by the simple diffusion based on their pressure or concentration gradient. The thickness of the membrane involved and the solubility of the gases are the two major factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. The diffusion membrane is made up of three major layers. You can see here the layers. One is squamous epithelium of alveoli, endothelium of alveolar capillaries, and the third one is the basement membranes between them. The total thickness of the membrane is about 0.2 millimeter. The factors are favorable for diffusion of oxygen into the blood from the alveoli and the diffusion of the carbon dioxide from the blood into the alveoli. In the tissue, in the metabolically active tissues, the pressure of oxygen is about 40 millimeter, whereas the arterial blood brought to the tissues has a pressure of oxygen of 95 millimeter. In the tissues, pressure of carbon dioxide is about 45 millimeter, which is higher than that of the blood. So carbon dioxide diffuses from the tissues into the blood. Here you can see in the diagram blood from the pulmonary artery, which is this type of blood is obviously impure blood, or we can say the deoxygenated blood. And here you can see oxygen diffuses into the red blood cells, carbon dioxide diffuses into the alveolus, and after that blood goes to the pulmonary veins. So the student, it was all about the respiratory volumes, pulmonary capacities, and exchange of gases. This was your revision part. Students, make the diagram properly in your class notes and uh, remember the labeling points and the diagram points. So have a nice day. Goodbye.